This story begins within the halls of Konami. After the success of Capcom's Resident Evil, which popularized the survival horror genre, Konami wanted a piece of the action. Konami cobbled together a team of young developers who had never had the chance to work on a big game like this. And this team was led by Keiichiro Toyama, and this was his first time in the director's seat. The goal appointed to the team was simple: make a Resident Evil clone. This is not what they did. The team decided to dive into the realms of psychological horror with Silent Hill. This was a complete game changer for the genre, adding a new layer of complexity, and I think it's fair to say, creating a vibe. Toyama and the team decided to head in this drastic new direction. They created a complete alternative to what Resident Evil was offering. Silent Hill would go on to produce some of the best games in the genre, some of the most mediocre, the hope of reinvention, and I don't know how to feel about this. But this video isn't about Silent Hill. Toyama left Konami and joined Sony's Japan Studios, a team that has existed since the beginning of PlayStation, formed with a collective of talent to create experimental games to add some variety to the console's output. Some of these games include Parappa the Rapper, Ape Escape, Vib Ribbon, Loco Roco, Patapon, the games of Team Eco. Oh, and they also co-developed a game that created an entire genre that apparently everyone really fucking enjoys. And they also made Knack. Guys, I don't know what to say about Knack. When Toyama joined the team, his first project was a survival horror game, and it was almost the complete opposite of Silent Hill. Instead of being set in America, it would be set in Japan. You wouldn't be playing as one character, but you would play as 10. In Silent Hill, you would go through the game in a linear sequence of events, and in this new game, it would be told completely out of order. This new game was called Forbidden Siren, and it is one of the most obtuse survival horror games ever made. Also, in America, the game is just called Siren, but guys, I don't live there! Forbidden Siren features some bizarre qualities, which has really made the game a cult classic. Its strange voice acting, which almost rivals Resident Evil.
Excuse me? Are you okay? Hello? Oh my god! What do I do? Call an ambulance? Oh! An earthquake!
Its usage of facial capture, which in moments adds to the game's horror, and its borderline, nonsensical puzzle design. And Toyama said the idea behind this was so that the community could come together online and try and solve the puzzles. And hey, that sounds a lot like this game! But with all that being said, this video isn't about Forbidden Siren. After a sequel and a reboot, it was time to move on. In 2008, Toyama started working on a brand new game, with completely different gameplay, art style, and aesthetic to anything he had made before. An early concept shows a heroine flying through the streets of a cel-shaded city that looks as if Studio Ghibli adapted a Mobius comic. This new game was codenamed Gravity, and it would begin life as a PlayStation 3 game, eventually moving over to Sony's brand new handheld, the PlayStation Vita, to be a launch title for the system. Eventually the game would be renamed, and that is what this video is about. This video is about Gravity Rush.
I can't do this, guys.
The game begins with a lone apple tree in the sky. An apple falls from this tree and descends further beyond what we can see. Eventually it reaches a city, bustling with life, people going about their day. We see characters we are going to meet along this journey, and still this apple falls further and further to the bottom of the city, where we find the character we will be controlling, Kat. She has no memory of who she is, where she is, or how she got there. Once we gain control, we have the ability to move around, and we are accompanied by a celestial being that has taken the form of a cat. We decide to name him Dusty. All the dialogue in the game is said in a made-up language, and it's presented in these comic book style text balloons, outside of major cutscenes. As we travel further up the city, we are grabbed by a man, pleading with Kat to save his son. We follow him through the sewers and find the city in chaos. The man says we are just like the Crow Girl, and we have superpowers. Dusty begins to act strange, and suddenly... we are able to fly. With these powers, we are able to avoid the attacks of the Nevi, the creatures that are causing this gravity storm. Cat is able to reach the child, and Dusty takes care of the Nevi. We have saved the child and reunited this family, but their home is lost, and they blame Cat for it. This community is broken, and even if Cat manages to help, they won't accept her. She feels like an outsider. And I feel what she says here perfectly encapsulates what the game is about.
Pleajeune m'achever, et je crois plaisir de wansi. Pleajeune, plein chabiment de sa point chafé. De blessement, l'oeterie, chaplain to the save.
So let's answer the question. Where are we? Hekseville is the main city and primary location of Gravity Rush. The city is part of the World Pillar, this colossal structure, and little is known about it from the civilians. It stretches further than the eye can see from both directions. Constant gravity storms have torn the city apart, leaving only one of the 4 districts remaining. This leaves Hekseville and its people in quite the precarious position. But now that Cat has arrived, and she has these abilities, maybe she can help bring this fractured community back together. Let's talk about these abilities. Cat has the ability to shift the gravity around her and use it to her advantage. And the way you do this is pretty simple. With a press of the R1 button, you will float and remain stationary in the air. Point the camera in the direction you want to go, hit the R1 button again and boom, you will fall in that direction. Every time I take off and fall through the city, it feels amazing and so fun to get around. You can also use your abilities in combat to deal with any Nevi you come across. You can use gravity to deliver more powerful kicks, levitate objects and hurl them at your enemies, and with every boss fight you can use a super powerful move to finish them off.
It's a bit excessive, but I like it.
Now let's move on to the first district of Hekseville, and I just want to preface that if I pronounce any places or character names wrong, it's a made up fucking language, you don't know it either! Old Noir is the primary residential area of Hekseville. Town square featuring a fountain, food vendors, and an out-of-commission train station. Heading to the outskirts, you'll find a park and a little church. And at the bottom of the city, Cat decides to make a sewer pipe her home. And when you save your game from this spot, there's this cute little menu and Cat is hanging out in her home and it's just really charming. In this part of the game, Cat meets the people that will join her along her journey. Like Sid, a clumsy policeman who immediately takes a liking to Cat, asking her to help him in the police with important missions like protecting the sacred gem from the Hekseville Phantom, known as Alias. An unknown thief with an intimidating presence and is easily able to outsmart the police. And he has the ability to control the Nevi. Surely he must have something to do with the gravity storms. But before we can even get close to him, he is gone without a trace. And unfortunately for us, he isn't the only problem we'll have to deal with. After wandering the city, you notice people talk about another gravity shifter. They call her the Crow Girl. One day we see a celestial crow that looks very similar to Dusty. After following it, we find another gravity shifter named Raven. And she clearly wants nothing to do with Cat, but that won't stop her from finding answers. After a series of events with a fortune teller ventriloquist that steals all my money, we find a hole in the wall that leads to a colourless pocket dimension, with giant Nevi roaming in isolation. Dusty leads us to a Mario-style pipe and we fall into the home of this hermit named Gade. He is claiming to be the creator of this world. We have no reason to believe this man aside from the fact that he has a fucking wormhole in his chest!
This is how you travel to the gravity storms.
Don't ask fucking questions, okay?
The gravity storms are a fun test of your traversal skills, having to fall and slide your way through these remnants of a city lost in time. At the end of these trials, you fight a giant Nevi creature, These battles are a test of your abilities, and after defeating these beasts, the gravity storm fades and allows the lost part of the city to return to Hekseville. All the people that were lost in time can now reunite with their friends and family, and you can help bring this community back together. And with the train station back in service, let's hop on board and take a ride to the next district. Pleajeune is the entertainment district, featuring nightclubs, bars, hotels, shops, and a large Ferris wheel. Pleajeune feels more lively and upbeat than Old Noir, with a completely different colour palette and soundtrack. A lot of your time in this section will be at Arquebus Academy, a boarding school in Hekseville where Kat begins a budding romance with one of the students.
Okay, game.
Newt, a student at the academy, asks Kat to help find a student that's been missing for some time, named Echo. To speed things up, Kat flies Newt around the city, and it feels a bit romantic. For a small time, Kat gets to feel what it's like to be normal, getting to live out moments of teenage youth that she has no recollection of. But after finding Echo, everything snaps back to reality. After battling through the school, Kat is able to handle the monster and reunite Newt and Echo, and they express their love for each other. Kat realizes that this life isn't meant for her, and even though she would like nothing more than to be a high school student and not worry about anything going on around her, she has a city to save and can't let the people of Hekseville down. With another gravity storm out of the way, it's on to the next district. Industria is the factory district, where all the workers converge to build different materials. And in this section of the game, we are finally able to confront Alias, as he is threatening to bomb the entire district. After defusing the bombs and dealing with the Nevi, it's time to take on Alias in his giant Nevi form. After a huge fight, you are able to take Alias down, but before you can find out anything, Alias takes a fall for the worse. After dealing with Alias, we are able to enter the final gravity storm and bring Hekseville back together. So let's briefly touch on the final district of the game. Vendor Center is the downtown area of Hekseville and is the largest by far. It's the financial and government capital of the city, with a giant clock tower sitting at the center. Now the city is reconnected, the military can finally help Kat with the Nevi, even offering her a position as a member of the Jellyfish Special Forces unit. Kat declines as she prefers to work by herself. And now the entire city reconnected, Hekseville is back. This community that we came to broken and lost has finally been reunited. But Kat still doesn't have many answers. And maybe we can find some by looking towards the very structure that is holding up the entire city. The World Pillar. And much like the red apple at the beginning of this journey, we shall start by descending the World Pillar. The further and further we descend, the gravity storms get stronger and more difficult to avoid, eventually leading to us entering the pillar itself. It's a bizarre landscape, looking like the insides of a creature, giant bones that stretch on for eternity. And while falling through the innards of the World Pillar, we'll have another problem to deal with. Throughout our entire journey, the other gravity shifter Raven has been confronting us in the gravity storms, trying to stop us from reconnecting the city. And in the World Pillar, she's threatening to kill us if we keep going. What could Raven be hiding at the bottom of the world? Well, we'll find out once we reach the bottom. We awaken in a cage. Dusty is not by our side, and we are held captive by a group of children that are known as the Lost Tribe. And the eldest of the group is the leader, but he doesn't take kindly to strangers. And without Dusty, we're going to need to make our own way out of this situation. We sneak around and traverse the small village that feels like a collection of tree houses at the bottom of the world. We are easily able to avoid the children, but it isn't long until the Nevi show up. But luckily for us, we find Dusty. After Kat takes care of the Nevi, the Lost Tribe accept her, and the leader of the group, Zaza, reveals how the group ended up stuck down here. One day, all the children were on the bus to school, and in a freak accident, it fell all the way from Hekseville to the bottom of the world. They waited for their parents to round up the police and try and save them, but it never happened. Now they have to fend for themselves. Zaza hopes his younger sister is okay back home. Kat wants to try and save the Lost Tribe and bring them all back to the city, but the journey was hard enough by ourselves. We can't bring everyone back up alone, unless we got some help from another gravity shifter. Raven has known about the children lost at the bottom of the world, and has been wanting to help them, but she made a deal with Alderman Deneclia, currently running for mayor of Hekseville. He asked Raven to stop the city being joined together for unknown reasons, and if she does, he will send a rescue team to the Lost Tribe.
Don't be sus, okay? Just don't do it.
And the main reason Raven wants to help is because Zaza is her older brother. But due to the way time works on the World Pillar, time moves faster in Hekseville, so now she is older than he is. But now with the power of 2 gravity shifters, Kat and Raven are able to save the Lost Tribe. Now Raven is taking care of issues from her past, Kat is still no closer to knowing anything about herself. One person is willing to help Kat with that. Sienna is one of the children of the Lost Tribe. She is definitely the most carefree person among the group, who instead of keeping lookout or whatever other orders she has been given, she'd rather find a nice quiet spot and take a nap. But one time we find her standing in a very precarious position, and something seems off. Something is wrong. She isn't breathing. But before we can get help, Sienna has awoken and is now talking like a completely different person, claiming that the girl named Sienna is asleep. And she also reveals that she is another creator, just like Gade. He creates the world, while everything and everyone in the world comes from Sienna's imagination. And she offers to show us a glimpse of our past. This place contains your reality, past, present, and future. Here lies your hopes and despair. You were weak. The burden your frail arms were forced to carry was too much to handle. Yet you never thought twice about your actions. You struggled. You had no guardian leaving you vulnerable. The innocent truth, once spoken, can never be unheard. You fell with a little finger. The truth concerned those around you. There is no need to run. Your innocence was your undoing. Open your eyes. For it stirred them. The time has come. If you seek understanding, turn around and return to where you came from. A castle? Is this where the truth is?
Oh, Jesus Christ! I'm playing the game. Everything's fine. It's not my cupboard, is it? That seems to be fine now. Everything seems to be okay. Wait, what's going on in the game?
The city is completely different from when we were last here. For Kat, she feels like it's only been a few days, but for Hekseville, she's been gone for months. The police and students of Arquebus Academy have been forced to join the military, and this is all under the regime of the new mayor. Ugh.
You piece of shit, bro.
The city that we were able to rebuild and the community that we were able to bring back together is now living in fear under the new mayor. and he rose to power with his secret weapon to destroy the Nevi, the sea anemone.
It's a big machine that's meant to fight the Nevi, but it's made of Nevi, so you're just a fucking idiot.
With the machine going berserk, Cat, Raven and the military join forces to take down the machine. We've saved Hekseville, the city proclaiming that we are the Gravity Queen and the true hero that the city needed. And with that, the credits roll. And honestly, I think Gravity Rush is really fun. An overall simple game that does a lot with its style and makes the whole experience a joy to go through. I love how the game is constantly keeping you on your toes, and the moment you feel comfortable, the game will completely change its setting and throw you into a new scenario. You definitely feel a sense that there is more to this story because...
What the fuck is this shit about?
But it's a great starting point. It feels unique and different, and it shows exactly what Japan Studios is all about, giving these creators the resources to create new and interesting things. And I think that's what was great about Sony back then. But there's just one problem. It was made for the PlayStation Vita. Unfortunately, the PlayStation Vita wasn't destined to be the huge success that Sony wanted. Sony's previous handheld, the PSP, sold 80 million units. Meanwhile, the PlayStation Vita was struggling to sell over 10 million. And I think it's sad that games like Gravity Rush were lost due to circumstances out of its control. Because I don't think the PlayStation Vita is a bad system at all, it was just sold at the wrong time. And luckily, Gravity Rush was ported to PS4, so there's another way to play it, but Gravity Rush feels like a series that needed so much more than just one game.
Well, that's the end of that game. We got a fucking sequel?!
After 5 years of waiting, and on the PlayStation 4, Gravity Rush 2 was real, and we would finally be able to continue Cat's story.
Before that, you gotta watch an anime prequel that like sets up to, but it's free and it's on YouTube and it's fun. It's fun.
It's a nice little taste of Gravity Rush to give you the rundown of what has happened between the first and second game. It nails the action, character interactions, art style, and overall vibe of the games. And it's nice to see a potential way that Gravity Rush could be adapted into a different medium. In the anime, Cat, Raven, and Sid are trying to find a group of orphans that have been kidnapped. Unfortunately, while trying to save them, Cat and Sid end up being sucked into a gravity storm and pulled away from Hekseville, separated from Raven and Dusty. And all of this leads right into... We are immediately dropped into this unknown scenario. We are stuck in these heavy mining suits and are trying to gather as much ore as we can. Until... Wherever our heroes are, a gravity storm is beginning to take over, and with no gravity abilities, they must run through these collapsing buildings and return to the mining ship. Here, we meet the head of this operation, named Lisa, a strong leader who isn't very fond of people falling out of line, and Cat and Sid are still trying to earn their place at their new home. The Banga settlement is a small town connected to a mining ship. The world pillar is nowhere in sight, and the people of Banga don't know what Hekseville is. Cat and Sid were picked up by the people of Banga and put to work, with the general sentiment being a lazy worker is a hungry worker. Cat is trying to earn the trust of Lisa and be accepted among the people, but without Dusty's powers, Cat has had a hard time acclimating to the work. After everything we went through in the last game, we have lost it all and are back to square one. And the only person in the settlement that we can really relate to is Ceci. Ceci is Lisa's adopted daughter. As a child, she was found near Banga, right near the gravity storms. She has no idea where she comes from. She is feeble and feels out of place. She often goes to the spot where she was found, away from the village near some rock formations. And after Cat and Sid's arrival, the gravity storms have been getting even worse, leading to the return of the Nevi. this is bad. What can we do? Hopefully something happens. Guys, it's the fucking cat! Now that Kat has her powers, she's able to show the people of the settlement what she is capable of. And now, maybe she can help Lisa with her sun shipping problem. Sun Shipping is run by Virgo Sun, a cutthroat businessman who is more than willing to throw people under the bus to achieve what he needs for his employers, often leading to the people of Banga with little to no rations and being forced to go mining in the gravity storm hotspots. Now that Banga has Kat, they might be able to get the upper hand on Virgo. After Kat is able to acquire very precious ore with her powers, Virgo is furious and ends up challenging Banga.
They challenged them to this, but I have trouble pronouncing a lot of the words in this game, so I'm just not gonna do that, okay?
To a one-on-one fight in a gladiator-style tournament to decide who will get to keep this precious ore. Banga's representative being Kat, and Sun Shipping's being Fee, Virgo's younger brother, and the top fighter of Sun Shipping. Kat is unable to use her powers, and Fee is unable to use any weapons. And after a fair fight in this kind of jank but classic anime setup, Kat is able to win for the Banga settlement, get better payment from Virgo, and be able to feed Lisa's people, and stop off at the closest major city. This is the main city in Gravity Rush 2, and overall it has a very different vibe from Hekseville, and this area really shows the new lighting engine that this game implements, while keeping the cel-shaded graphics of the original. Now let's take a dive into the first district of this new city. Stepping off the ship, we arrive at a bustling food market full of customers enjoying the food and the music of the local buskers. Immediately you are able to explore the sights, sounds and culture of your new home. Across the way from the market is downtown, a sprawling metropolis looking more like a modern day Tokyo. And finally the industrial area, with a number of warehouses and docks for ships to pull in and drop off the precious ore from the gravity storms. They even use some of these gems to allow the entire city to float in the sky. However, recently some of the cargo has been stolen from Sun Shipping, and all signs point towards a gang known as the Angry Centipedes, who reside in the next district of the city, which can be found directly below the industrial area. And after falling through the haze, we find... We arrive to a desolate, poverty-stricken shantytown. The people here have little to no resources, barely scraping by, juxtaposing the bustling lifestyle of the city above, almost like they have forgotten about them. The government doesn't provide any resources for this community, leading to the harsh conditions that they must live through. The treatment of the people at the bottom of the city has led to the creation of the Angry Centipedes, a resistance group that has been forced to steal so they can simply live, and the government's response is less than amicable.
Jesus! They're just shooting the poor people!
This is going, really bad.
I wonder how the fucking rich people are going.
Above the city lies a collection of mansions and parks for the wealthy to roam around and live an idyllic life, with the most they'd have to worry about being not having enough balloons for a birthday party. And sure, it looks nice and wonderful, but these people fucking suck! These are the type of people that will assume, since you're not one of them, are a servant, and you simply exist to do everything for them. They probably have no idea about the people living through hardships at the bottom of the city. I don't know if I've made it clear, but I really don't like these people very much, so when I had the opportunity to take some fuel from some random lady...
Listen up, rich woman. I don't fucking like you.
I of course took it back down to the Angry Centipedes. These people can use the fuel to keep them going a little while longer, but it isn't these people in the mansions we'll have to deal with. They aren't the ones running the city. The ones who run the city reside further above the clouds, observing our every move. But before we can get to the imposing Sky Fortress, the people we care about are in danger. The leaders of the city, known as the Council, have caught on with Kat interfering in their plans, and they are coming for the people she cares about, causing civil unrest and showing that they are willing to hurt anyone who gets in their way. Now Kat is able to handle the attacks until the Council reveals their secret weapon. Raven must have been pulled through the gravity storm before the events of the game and was taken by the council. They brainwashed and forced her to be their weapon, but during the attack, Cat is able to get the upper hand. Now that we have both gravity shifters, they might be able to take out the council, but they will not go quietly, as they end up taking members of the settlement captive, including Ceci. But now that the city has seen the gravity shifters take on the military, they believe they can take down the council. Lisa and the people of the city want to help.
Except for Vogo, he leaves because he doesn't want to help anyone. I'm sure this won't come up again later.
This leads to an attempt to break out the people who have been taken. We find everyone held in cells at the bottom of the fortress, but the council have taken Ceci to be interrogated. This leads to Cat and Raven fighting their way up the fortress, and they find Ceci before she can be taken. Before they can all escape, things get worse. At the last moment, the council have struck, and all hope is lost. But in this moment, an unexpected hero steps forward. And even after all the sacrifices, the council still has one final contingency plan. The council have pulled this monster from the rift planes, a parallel dimension that exists within the gravity storms. And this isn't something you can control. This giant thing has killed the council and is now on a rampage and destroying the entire city. Cat and Raven are able to hold it off while the civilians evacuate, but Ceci has been pulled inside the monster, and the only way to find her and end the attacks is to kill it from the inside. Cat and Raven make their way inside the giant creature, and it's a never-ending stretch of hallways, pulled together by different structures. And it's easy to get through here with Cat's new gravity powers that she's gained from the rift planes. Cat gains 2 sets of bracelets, unlocking Lunar and Jupiter abilities. Lunar makes gravity weaker, thus making Cat lighter and more agile. Meanwhile, Jupiter makes gravity increase, making Cat heavier and more destructive. This adds new layers of complexity to the combat, and it really feels like a step ahead of the first game. With these new abilities, Cat and Raven are able to make it to the center, and they find the heart of the beast. This is what the council made to try and regain control, the gravity engine. And at the center of this machine we see Ceci, almost being used as a conduit and fueling the machine. Now, this might look like a video game boss fight, because it is, and it's fucking awesome. Pop off the cables and hit the weak spot. It's so video gamey and I love it. And all this leads to something is wrong with Ceci, but before we can do anything, the machine starts to turn. After everything, Cat has been pulled away from everyone she cares about, left in the void with nobody in sight. But at the end of this void, she ends up in a very similar place. But everything has changed. Cat has returned to Hekseville, in the exact spot she originally arrived in the first game. But when she arrives to her home, it has been left in disregard, rubbish thrown about the place, and the people in the city have seemed to have forgotten about us. And these robots patrolling town, even asking Cat to register as a citizen. While a lot has changed since we were last in Hekseville, the city still has to deal with the Nevi, and before Kat can even jump into action, she has arrived.
Toi, c'est la l'ange. Tu la suis, Elise.
This is Callie Angel, a new hero that has taken care of the city in our absence, and she doesn't even acknowledge Kat, and the people love her. Once again, Kat is back to square one, having lost everything she was able to build, and this leads to Kat meeting a man named Dr. Brahman. Dr. Brahman is the head scientist of the city, and due to his obligations and trying to hold off the Nevi, he has had no time to himself. We offered to take him around, and it's a nice way to reacquaint ourselves with Hekseville, as well as learning about Dr. Brahman, who tells us about the tragic story of his daughter, who has a terrible illness and is unable to visit all the landmarks of the city, something they used to do when she was younger. You start to feel a genuine connection with this man and his loss, as we have lost so much as well. And maybe because Kat reminds Brahman of his daughter, he tells us what really happened to her. After the illness began to seriously affect and almost kill her, Brahman froze her in time. For an eternity, she will remain alive. And that is also his plan to save the city from the Nevi threat, freezing everyone in time, trapped in a moment, forever. Clearly Brahman has gone insane and is willing to do anything possible to be with his daughter again. And in his broken and deranged mind, this is the only way. Even going so far as to kidnapping orphans, genetically modifying them to be superheroes so they can hold back the Nevi. This is what he has done to Callie Angel. She was one of the orphans from the prequel anime that were kidnapped. And if we are going to stop Brahman, we have to get through Angel.
Mansir.
She is a formidable opponent, and we are barely able to handle her ourselves. But luckily for us, some old friends arrive to help.
Raven! Sissy!
Kat and Raven are easily able to handle Callie Angel, but what we don't know is we have just given Brahman and Callie their secret weapon. When Raven returned to Hekseville through the rift portal, she wasn't alone. She brought Callie's sister, Ceci. Ceci was one of the orphans that Dr. Brahman had stolen to do experiments on, and she is Callie's sister, having been pulled into a gravity storm and ended up being taken in by Lisa, with no memory of anything that had happened to her. But now, seeing her sister, she has returned to her original self, Jirga Angel, another superpowered being, and together, they are easily able to deal with Kat and Raven. Now that Brahman has both angels by his side, he is able to begin his plan to freeze all of Hekseville in place. Kat continues to try and reason with Jirga and bring her back to her former self, but I think if anything of Ceci is left inside of Jirga, her mother will be able to bring her back.
Vida! Jirga ao Jirga para Lhao. As de la is Lama. Sissy!
Ceci is able to return after hearing the people that care for her calling out to her, and now that Brahman's plan has failed, Kali uses her true power. Now that things have truly turned upside down and all hell is broken loose, with the help of the Jellyfish Special Forces unit from the first game, Kat and Raven will try and take down the beast formerly known as Callie Angel. And rather abruptly, the game ends. The credits show how all the characters deal with the fallout of the game. And honestly, I love this game so much more than the first. Having not one, but two entire cities to explore this time really makes the world feel huge and lived in. And two added movement styles added a lot more depth to the combat. Also, this game actually has side quests. The first game couldn't fit that on the Vita. But I still feel that all the mysteries this world has to offer haven't been answered. And kinda like the first game, I guess they're going to leave it for a future sequel. And surely, after getting a home console release on the PlayStation 4, and it being a first-party game from Sony, that means the game was a huge success, right? Right?
I swear to God, man, this game better have fucking sold well. Why the fuck does this keep happening to me?
According to Wikipedia, Gravity Rush 2 only sold 100,000 copies in Japan, and it doesn't say anything about other countries, so I think it's safe to assume that this game wasn't a commercial success. And in 2021, Sony completely dissolved Japan Studios, their first ever studio, and the creators of Gravity Rush are no longer at Sony and are unable to continue work on the franchise. And unfortunately, this feels like something that keeps happening across the entire industry. If you're a AAA studio and you're not making live service, annual releases, or 200-hour open world games that nobody finishes, it doesn't feel like there's a place for games like Gravity Rush anymore. And so I guess, like the Gravity Rush games, I'll have to leave this video with an abrupt ending. I guess I'll catch you guys in the next video. But if you look at how much time is left on the video, you know that there must be more to this story. When you finish the game, a golden figure appears in different spots around town, leaving cryptic messages that don't really make any sense. After searching and finally being able to have a moment with the figure, the city of Hekseville begins to fall apart and gets swallowed by an eternal darkness. The golden figure is gone, but the ghost of Alias appears and tells Kat that the answers to all her questions, who she is and how to save the city, lies at the top of the World Pillar. When Kat awakens, we are alone at the top of a tower. Dusty is nowhere to be seen, and Kat is wearing heavy robes with a giant headpiece, unable to move with any speed, instead a slow and sluggish pace. The people of the castle are calling us Queen Allure, and we meet our nephew, Kai, the king of Ito. He is glad to have his auntie back because we've been gone for 100 years. And our memory is a bit hazy, so we're unsure if the events of the previous games even happened. Kai and his right-hand man,
How the fuck am I meant to say this name?
they ask us to rest up and stay in the castle. For now, all we can do is sit at the throne and discuss political matters with the Senate for days and days on end. And it is a monotonous task, really dragging the pace, really making us feel stuck. Whenever we want to leave, the royal servants keep us on the same routine. In our bedroom, we find a book about a princess stuck in a tower, and when she manages to escape, she dies, her father only wanting to keep her safe from the harsh reality of the world they live in, leaving Kat to feel hopeless, like no matter what she does, she'll be stuck in this tower for the rest of her life. But one night, we notice something. We find our window left open, and by its side a music box that rings out the same song we heard at the very beginning of the first game. The music that followed a red apple falling from a tree. The song that we have heard repeated many times throughout both games. It's the theme of Gravity Rush, almost reminding Kat of all the amazing adventures she's had. With this new motivation, we explore the castle at the dead of night while everyone is asleep, And when we reach the bottom of the castle, we find Dusty and Raven being held captive. This snaps Cat back to her original self, and now we are going to find out what is happening. While we try and escape, we see Zero talking with Alias about overthrowing the king. But how is Alias alive and why is he here? Kai is a maniacal leader, brainwashing Cat into a trance and wanting to destroy everything below Ito, being convinced by a dream that it would save the city. Before Cat is able to stop Kai, she is pulled into the final dreamscape by the third creator, known as Bit. Bit is the fixer of the dream, almost talking about the world like it's code in a program, almost like they are the bug fixer of the universe. And in this dream, we learned that 100 years ago, Cat was the ruler of Ito. But unlike all previous rulers, she had no guardian and no powers to speak of. She was weak and vulnerable and not suited to rule. For this reason, the Senate planned to assassinate her. But Sid would save her life, sacrificing himself. But ultimately, Cat still fell from Ito. In the fall, Bit gave Cat a guardian to protect her. They even reincarnated Sid to be Alias, to push Cat into becoming the hero she needed to be. Every convenience, every moment that the characters had no way out, and a miracle would happen. It was the creators, stepping in and making it so. And maybe this is the reason for this destructive force bringing the end of the world. Too many interruptions cause an after effect. Now, I don't think this is the perfect explanation for how the world works, but I find something kind of beautiful about the idea that the three creators are surrogates for the game designers of Gravity Rush. And before the climax of the game, the creators sacrifice themselves to give Cat a final chance to save the world. Almost like the developers knew they weren't going to get another chance to work on the series, but still giving the characters a chance to live. And in the final confrontation with this giant beast that continues to destroy Hekseville, we hear the people begin to sing. It's the theme of Gravity Rush, the lyrics meaning the red apple falling from the tree. The people of Hekseville are us, the people that love these games. The very first thing the player does is knock the red apple from a tree. I find this ending beautiful, an acknowledgement to the people that love Gravity Rush and have been here through everything. This really feels like a way for the developers to thank the fans for playing these games. Not every series gets a chance to flourish, and I think the developers creating this secret ending to a sequel that probably shouldn't exist and getting closure on the story is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a game. I started making this video in December of last year, and since then a lot has happened. 2023 was a year of allowing creative talents to thrive and provide amazing experiences across big and small games. And unfortunately, many layoffs have happened since then. And coming into this year, some great studios have been closed, due to mismanagement from people that don't understand how video games work. But I have hope that creative and talented people will be able to make amazing games that are unique and are willing to just be themselves. The creators of Gravity Rush have opened a new indie studio and are working on Slitterhead, and I'm so excited to see what that game ends up being. I don't just think that Gravity Rush deserves more, the idea behind Gravity Rush deserves more. I think video games are really cool, and I want to see the right people be able to work on them and make them matter. So yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about that.
La lea you pulo, le jour.